This is the Mutual Aid Report.
Your own community.
It's all volunteers.
The love that people have for Chicago.
Led by intergenerational hosts and journalists spotlighting how Chicagoans keep each other safe.
Hello, my name is Eric.
Hi, my name is Rita.
Through food access, youth programs, immigration defense, and grassroots rapid response. Hear practical stories, tools, and invites to volunteer, donate, and show up. Thanks for tuning in. Let's listen in on today's report.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Mutual Aid Report here on WLPNLP Chicago 105.5 FM Lumpin Radio. My name is Mario Smith. Thank you for joining us today. We really appreciate you being here, as always. Today, we're looking at mutual aid not as theory, but as daily survival work in Chicago. Let's go back to 2019, the Black Lives Matter movement. Brave Space Alliance is a black and trans-led organization on the South Side providing food access, housing support, healthcare navigation, and identity-affirming services to the LGBTQ plus community, especially black and trans Chicagoans. This is what it looks like when communities build systems of care where institutions have failed to deliver them. History shows us that when the world turns its back, the South Side of Chicago turns to each other. In 2017, in a national climate of rising hostility, black trans Chicagoans were tired of traveling miles to the North Side for basic dignity. They were tired of being an afterthought in the very city they helped build. Out of that fire, Brave Space Alliance was born. Led by visionaries like Lucia Wade, BSA didn't wait for a seat at the table. They built their own house. Today, Brave Space Alliance stands as a black and trans-led powerhouse on the South Side in Hyde Park, thank you. They are providing food access, housing support, healthcare navigation, and identity-affirming services to Chicago's LGBTQ plus communities, again, especially black and trans Chicagoans who have been sidelined for too long. Nikki Patan is the interim, for now, director of Brave Space Alliance, and she joins us with two of her comrades today. Nikki, how have you been?
Hey, Mario. I've been great, actually. This has been, you and I go back like rocking chairs. We've known each other for a very long time.
Indeed.
You have been witness to all the many things, all my many adventures.
Yes.
And this, I have to say, is one of the greatest honors of my life. And I don't say that lightly.
Oh, I know.
Yeah, like I love the team at Brave Space Alliance. I love the work that we do. I don't love the traffic I have to drive through every day, but I can say that once I hit the door, even once I hit 53rd Street, all of that goes out the window.
That's what's up.
Yeah.
The interim label is on you, but you're familiar with Brave Space Alliance, clearly.
Absolutely.
And the work that is being done. How do you describe how do you describe Brave Space Alliance and the things that you do every day?
Well, I think what I always lead with is that the thing that we center, value, and prioritize is centering, valuing, and prioritizing the dignity and humanity of everyone who hits our door. And that also includes our team and the way that we navigate each other, too. I think for me, that's the biggest piece to it. You know, a big part about prejudice, whether it comes in the form of racism, homophobia, transphobia. For some of us, that's all three at one time, not to mention all the other isms that can go along with that. Honoring the humanity and dignity in people, seeing people as they wish to be seen, as they desire to be seen, and upholding that, and even in some ways helping them to do that more and better. That, to me, captures the essence of Brave Space Alliance. And, we have 4 pillars through which our work flows: housing, identity, health, and food. And so we feel like if you have those 4 pillars in place, that sets you up to really walk the path that you want to walk, and to walk it with your head held high and your spine straight.
One of the things that I've always wondered about Brave Space in the LGBTQ space itself.
Sure.
When we say there's a need for housing, is it because there are people in that community that are being marginalized when it comes to finding like a place to live? It just the refusal because they may be gay or trans?
I think it's more complex than that. I think not to interrupt. I'm not trying to minimize it at all.
I'm really truly trying to figure out why can't a person who is trans or gay be able to just do what everybody else does in terms of being able to get an apartment or a house?
No, realistic talk, Mario. Like, absolutely. And so here's why it's complex. The first part is that I want to lift up the fact that in Illinois, we have some of the strongest civil protections in the entire country. So actually, it is illegal to discriminate in terms of housing, to discriminate on the basis of race or sexuality or gender identity. That's actually against the law. Now, most landlords don't know that, but then again, most landlords don't know much about property management in general. So that goes right along with it. But it's really about, one, when you think about how many of us start life as adults, right? A lot of us have parents that love us, care for us, give us places to live. Even if we've like turned 18 and we're going to college, some of us go away to college, then we come home to our parents, and then from there find a job, get our own place, et cetera. And that's how it goes. For a lot of folks who are LGBTQ, but particularly for trans folks and particularly for Black trans folks, that is not the path that they end up walking. The path they end up walking, and I know this from my days as a case manager at Center on Halsted in their youth program, I'd have young people come to me all the time at 4 in the afternoon, 5 in the evening, 7 in the evening. My mom just found a lipstick in my backpack and told me to get out. It's February and 30 degrees outside. And instead of like me being able to find a place easily for that young person to go. So back then, this was in 2006, in the state of Illinois, back then, there were 24 beds in the entire state for anyone under the age of 18. That's for a youth homelessness population back then of 50 to 60,000 people, right? I don't know what the updated statistics are today. I know that we've added a few more beds, not enough. But if you can imagine a young person who then has to start life trying to build a stable life for themselves, like from the red line, because that's the only place that they have to go. And there's not a ton of shelter space. And the shelter spaces that we do have, a lot of them are very religious. So I've had situations where I had a young person who was on my caseload. They forced her to sleep in a dress in a basement. And that was their shelter. And said that if she didn't put the dress on, and she was like young butch lesbian, so not trans, but just masculine, you know, presenting. If she didn't put on the dress, she couldn't stay there for the night. Right. She put on the dress. So when you have like housing options tied in with religion and with conservative values, that becomes not an option, especially for folks who are trans, who, by the way, are fighting, like to fight to assert to see yourself and for the world to see yourself the way you see yourself. That's a fight that I think a lot of us are familiar with. But for trans folks, like, take that fight and put it on steroids because it becomes that much more intense. So after you're fighting already, to find a sense of identity and to just represent yourself the way you know yourself to authentically be, right? Then on top of that, now you're like, you know, unhoused. You don't have a place to go. Maybe you're still in high school, but let's, you know, consider what that's like, you know, trying to finish high school, you don't have a place to go. Let's say you do that, though. And there's a lot of extraordinary people who do that. You do that, you finish college, you go to college, maybe you get a degree. But a lot of people can't even get the stability for themselves to even do that, right? And if that's the way that you make the money to be able to like buy a home or rent an apartment, because let's face it, these days, just to rent an apartment in Chicago by yourself or even with roommates, how much money are we talking? That's not no McDonald's type situation.
No,
That's
it's
not,
not.
you know what I mean? That's not even no, I'm going to work at the Amazon warehouse type situation. Like, you know, so it's like, unless you can get like a specialized degree or even like go to the trades, which, let's be for real, do we really think the unionized trades in Chicago are going to be friendly and open to trans people wanting to learn to be carpenters or, you know, electricians? Right. Yeah. So, Jaheim, I want to tag you in here because you are like you're the youngest person on our team. And I think you probably have the greatest connection, the deepest connection with a lot of the young Black trans folks in the city. Why do you think it's difficult for them to find housing?
Of course, the main reason is, you know, due to like sexual orientation and gender identity, but also employment reasons as well. Sorry. A lot of jobs, they still have this thing where like they don't want like a certain person who identify as anything other than them working for them or just working for the company, because they think that they won't make any money or customers won't come into stores. So I feel like employment plays another issue with finding housing. It's just like Nikki said, like kids getting kicked out by their parents and not really having anywhere to go and having to do like sex work for exchange for like money and food and things like that. I've been in like partnership with a couple organizations such as like Ignite, which is a youth homeless shelter organization like place. They're a pretty cool organization. I refer all my youth that like are on like the edge of homelessness or whatever like over to them. They help them out with like finding housing and things like that. I even send youth over to like another organizations like Task Force. Which shout out to Raina Ortiz. She is amazing at finding housing for the young trans, identifying individuals. I just think, especially in this economy, landlords want you to make twice, 3 times the rent, and like you don't have that credit score. Credit score plays another part, especially with youth. A lot of youth, they are not they don't keep up with their credit score kind of thing because like to them they don't feel like they wasn't taught it. Nobody was like bringing it up to them. Nobody is making sure that's something like that they stay on top of. But lucky that I have a community and a village that even though I am 22, they're still raising me and just still teaching me adult ways, and I'm just so grateful for that because I get to pass what I learned from them down to my youth that I instruct, that I keep in contact with. So I think just coming together and just having more like income-based source programs for youth, credit score programs for youth, just teaching them about like financial responsibility. That's something that is needed. That's something that we're going to keep bringing into Brave Space. That's something that we're going to keep advocating for youth to be able to have that knowledge, so like that they can have homes by the time they're 25, as Nikki would say. Right. Just having them know about like home ownership and just trying to like build them up to be the best person that they could be.
And not to talk about this too much because there's so much to talk about.
My God, yeah.
You and I know on a very, very personal level when we worked for an organization. I'm going to keep that organization out of it. But there were a lot of kids in that organization who were on the verge of taking themselves out because they couldn't get help. Yes. Or the reaffirmation from their families. They couldn't receive any of that stuff. So when you say that, I know it comes from a place of actually knowing that. Yes. And knowing kids who would come up to me or you and be like, hey, my family just found out. Right. And I'm stupid. I'm like, found out what? And then when they tell me, I'm like, okay, what you need is to be able to have someone to talk to. And being able to provide that space for them is a humongous part of this work. Not just with the youth either. Some adults when they find that place in their lives. Oh yeah. They don't having someone to talk to is paramount to everything.
It's huge. Yes. It's huge. Real quick, I want to lift up something that Jaheim said when he said, young people and how they get pulled into sex work. So it takes 36 hours after a young person hits the street for them to be approached to trade sex for a survival need. So that's food, shower, bed, etc. Once that's kind of set into motion, you get sort of locked into that as the way that you meet your survival needs. As far as I know, most landlords are not going to take like money that you got in the back of a car as like, oh, now you can pay the rent. So when people are kind of set on that path, which in some ways that's the easiest way to not be out in the elements, to make sure that you get a meal, to have like, at least for the night, like a safe place to stay, getting pulled into that pattern kind of locks them into that. So that's another piece to that puzzle too. And that's why like all of these issues, there's a lot of like intersection between so many different issues. A lot of people talk about this like, Black trans like people, but that intersects with, homelessness. It intersects with sex work. It intersects with sex trafficking. It intersects with the school to prison pipeline. Because guess what? If you're a young person who's out on the street and you shoplift, they don't call your parents to come pick you up from court. They throw you in juvie.
Yeah, they do. Having taught there, I've seen it.
Hey, so
I've seen it.
Yeah. So that's kind of like the thing that we're talking about. But I think you also bring up a really good point, Mario, which is that the biggest piece is having people to talk to who I think reflect. If they don't reflect you fully, they reflect parts of who you are, right? And so I think that's one thing at Brave Space that makes us really unique and stand out amongst a lot of the other community centers out there, which are great, by the way. Shout out to all of them. We're coalition over competition every day. So this is not shade to anybody,
No
but
shade.
I think everybody has what they do really, really well. And what we do really, really well is our work around identity. So when you come in, you can get like a behavioral wellness check for like free, for no money, not signing up, no insurance, no nothing. You can just sit down with a qualified clinician. And we're right now building partnerships with other organizations to be able to funnel people into long-term therapeutic care at no cost to them. But we also have something really cool called the Dignity Suite. And the Dignity Suite is amazing. Ebony, do you want to talk about that? I feel like you spend like a good amount of time.
Well, the Dignity Suite is our affirming clothing closet. I say it's like identity. It gives a person their identity. It gives us one-on-one with a person. You don't rush them, even though they supposed to have 15 minutes in there. We don't rush them. Let them take their time. You get to know a person. You will hear their whole life story, what they're going through, anything. Anyone can donate to us. We're always accepting donations, especially men donations. It's an affirming suite. We have hair. We have a Transformation Tuesday, so they can get hair there and come on every fourth Tuesday, get their hair done and their makeup. They could get their makeup and go somewhere else. And speaking on the sex traffic part, a lot of people that interact and come in Brave Space are sex workers. Because that is their survival mode. They come in there, they get their outfits, and they go out there and do in the world they want to, and that's how they survive. But our Dignity Suite, that opens up. A person can come into Brave Space with an attitude. Once they go in that clothing closet, and then they come out a whole new person. Like, oh, thank you. I was in there maybe like a week ago with a young lady. She had been abused. And I didn't know that until I went in there with the young lady. And she just got to telling me all about it. I told her we have a behavioral health manager she could sit down and talk to and everything. She said, thank you. I never would have known you all was here. She heard about us from word of mouth in Hyde Park. So I had told her she could come sit in there, drop in with us anytime. She got her outfits. I'm telling her like, oh, that dress look nice on you. And I'm going through the clothes with her like, this will look nice on you, this will look nice on you, and she really appreciated it. So our Dignity Suite is our affirming closet, but I think that's where a lot of our participants and our community come and find their identity and get a change of attitude.
Yeah. I'm this is going to sound like it sounds. I'm curious why Brave Space Alliance isn't more known. For someone to say, I stumbled upon you because someone told me about it. Is it the functionality? Even better than that. Does the city try to acknowledge what you do without acknowledging you?
Yes.
All the time.
Because it would seem to me that it would be helpful if, and you hear the mayor and you hear other folks in the city, in city government, talk about wanting to make sure our youth are safe. And this isn't just a focus solely on the youth, but this part is very important.
Yeah.
Why? How do you acknowledge someone without acknowledging them publicly and putting your organization, making it front forward? This is what's here for your child if you're having trouble talking to your child about what they're going through in their life, or what decisions they have made about how they want to be received. Why, either one, any of you.
Speaking on the recognition part first, I feel like we still have to keep in mind that Brave Space Alliance has been open for a few years. We've only been out. Yeah, we've been open for a few years. We still have other great organizations who've been open longer than us. So of course they're going to get the recognition just based on how many years they've had in the game. But when it comes to Brave Space Alliance and like our recognition, we have like global recognition. We got like schools in like Korea trying to take like training classes from us when we go to like different like conferences like out of state and like Vegas, LA and things like that. We have like other organizations from like other parts of the U.S. be like, oh, like I've heard so much like great things about you guys. Like we look up to you. We appreciate the work that you all do. We're trying to we're trying to know the game and like know how like Brave Space Alliance operates, and I just think working with being around like the mayor Brandon Johnson and being around Antonio King. We love Antonio King so much. He is an amazing guy that does so much for the city and also so much for the LGBTQ plus community. He's one of the people that is also like pushing our name out there around and making sure that we get the recognition. Also just like the staff, like when we go to like different outreach events and different like fundraisers and things like that, we get to like share our story of the organization and share the work that we do and share the fact that we have one of the most diverse teams in the whole Chicago, as people like to say. We have different like races, ages, gender identities and things like that on our team. And I think just by us being so diverse and so well-rounded, I think that is one of the other reasons why our recognition is becoming like so much bigger, and like a lot of more people are like coming to us. Like we have participants from like Minneapolis, Mississippi, Atlanta. Like they literally come all the way from like where they're from, all the way in here. Be like, I heard about you guys like at home. So am I still able to receive the services? We were like, yeah, you can still receive the services. So just us having that global recognition and being known for our work worldwide is so much bigger. It's such a blessing. And it's just like such an opportunity to work for an organization like this, that we're actually making change. Like we're actually in the field. Like we're actually doing what we're supposed to do to help community. And I just feel like you can't really help community unless like you've been in community, and solely not just speaking on like LGBTQ plus, but like just like the Black and brown communities, youth, anybody that's like facing addictions and things like that. Like Nikki said, in order to like have that trust with a participant or allow that bond to happen, like that participant has to feel like, like y'all kind of like share the same stories and like that bond that they feel like, well, you're doing good. You're kind of inspiring me to be a better person and to do better. So a recognition like that it's no stopping us. It's only up from here.
Only up.
It's only up from here. Yeah.
There you go. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Evan.
I was just going to say, sometimes it's all about that trust. A lot of youth, and not just youth, a lot of adults are dealing with childhood traumas. So it comes from a lot of that. Like Nikki said earlier, a person was put out when they mom found their lipstick in their bag. Like, your mom out of all people, you can't trust your mom out of all people. So it hurts. That starts mental and if they don't have the resources or no one to show them like, okay, your foundation, where to go, what to do. If they don't bump into one of us, and we bump into people everywhere. We could be working at a bars, late night, anything, on the streets, up north, everything. That's another part of our outreach. It's never like 9 to 5 Brave Space. We're open Monday through Thursday, 9 to 5. It's weekends, it's after hours, everything. We're always hands-on doing this job. Like, it never stops. It's always, because our youth, yes, we always focus on our youth, but it's a lot of adults too that's dealing with it. And then they're out here doing things, and they're catering to the youth like they're their parents. But if they're not set up and don't have the mentality or the foundation, how I'm homeless and now I'm the parent to someone else and they're homeless, like what can both of us do for each other if we're both homeless? Now we both need the guidance or someone or somewhere to go to get the assistance that we need.
Yeah, especially in the gay scene, or the LGBT community, we have these things that we call chosen families. Chosen families is like, it's not your real family, but you get to call these people your family because they help you out.
That's not limited to the LGBTQ community.
That's anything.
We all have a chosen family, even if we love our family. There's always that, yes. But I understand the spirit of where that's coming from. I want to ask you, Nikki, before we take our break.
Yeah.
Based on what you're seeing since you've been at Brave Space, where's Chicago falling short or failing most?
Oh, number one with the bullet is housing. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Housing, like 100%. And it's again, it's complex. There's a lot of layers to it. But in a nutshell, one of the first things I can talk about are real estate developers who get something called LIHTC credits, which is low income housing tax credits. And that basically is they get money off their taxes if they agree to build a certain amount of affordable housing units. The problem is that the city doesn't really track that. They don't really track how many units are built. They don't really track when those units get rented. They don't really track what units are available, and they don't really hold developers accountable if they fail to build what they said they were going to build in order to get those credits, those tax credits. So that's one piece of the puzzle. The other piece are the rising costs of rent. And that's due to these corporate real estate developers, which, same bucket of people that are building all these buildings. So all this new construction that you see going up, like these new apartment buildings, new condo buildings, these are corporate like real estate developers. At the same time, they're also taking over a lot of what used to be like privately owned properties, and they're running it through corporate property management, which means that basically everything is run through AI. Your credit check, all of that. And like Jaheim said, with rents being set so high and landlords, these corporate landlords demanding that you make 3 times the rent, and because they're running everything through these like artificial intelligence systems to determine who's like the most desirable renter, there's no like wiggle room, right? Like when you had private landlords, you could negotiate around that. Like maybe my credit's not so great, so I'm gonna double my deposit, right? Just in case like things get wild. Or, I don't necessarily make 3 times the amount of rent, but I can help maintain the outside of your property. I can do all your shoveling, all your cutting the grass, etc.
Bartering.
Yeah.
And now with the sort of corporate takeover of real estate, and I think a lot of, and not just Chicago, but a lot of local city governments and state governments really supporting that and fueling that monetarily, it leaves us in this space where we have all of these housing units, a lot of them unable to be rented, a lot of people unable to afford rent, being priced out of the rental market. And, of course, any issue that we have as a city, as a society, of course, that's going to be felt by people who are the most marginalized. They're going to always feel it the most because they were already feeling it even before this became an issue.
What should policymakers understand about the experience of Brave Space Alliance?
I think like for us, like one of the other things that we have seen and even this week that we are feeling the impact of are the cut to SNAP benefits, for example.
Yes.
Even before the beginning of this year, and so I only started at Brave Space mid-November. From when I started in mid-November through the end of the year, we had a 30% uptick in use of our pantry services. And our pantry bags are exquisite. I can talk about that later. I mean, they are really incredible. But aside from that, like we're already feeling, we're right now, we literally had a conversation yesterday, didn't we?
Yes.
About how we need to expand our pantry budget because we know a bunch of people are going to be kicked off SNAP starting May 1st. So I think I think what policymakers need to understand is that what they decide has a trickle-down impact specifically on community centers and social service organizations because we are literally standing in the gap that the government is creating.
Exactly.
And somebody has to stand in that gap if you don't want, a bunch of like hungry, angry, violent people willing to get their food and find a place to stay by any means necessary. You make people desperate enough and hungry enough, that's exactly what they will do.
We had, on the first episode of our new season, we had State Senator Robert Peters on.
Yeah.
And that was exactly what we were talking about SNAP benefits ending on May 1st.
Yeah.
The realization that May 1st is coming quickly.
It's next
Very.
Friday. It's next Friday.
It raises a few questions, and we can talk about it on the other side of our break. It raises a few questions about in the space that Brave Space Alliance exists, how many of those folks rely on SNAP, and how just the general public, it could be war games out here for food.
Absolutely. Well, because then you put that against the backdrop of the situation that's happening in Iran, right? The closure of the Strait of Hormuz, which limits the amount of fuel that is out in the world, which powers all of the ships, all of the trains, all of the planes, which directly affects any kind of
Even
food
the cars.
distribution. It
Yeah.
also affects like construction material distribution. That then goes to like rising labor costs. And then all of that trickles down to all of us. And so for us, we are the people that people come see. Like literally we had someone in the space this morning that was like, I needed to come and get my pantry bag. Like I needed to come up here and make sure. And then she was like, I visit a few different pantries across the city in order to make the food stretch. So you have to think about that, how much labor and time and energy people are doing just to be able to feed themselves and their families.
It is getting real frighteningly fast. And I think when we, on the other side of the break, we should talk about funding.
Yes.
For organizations like Brave Space.
Yeah.
And you said it earlier, and I kind of want to just reiterate it. This is not to throw shade against anybody else, any other organization, because mutual aid is exactly that. It's mutual aid.
Oh, yeah.
We all have to start thinking about collaboration as opposed to competition,
Yeah.
because if we ride this competition train, it's going to go off the tracks at some point, and everybody's going to be looking at each other like the Spider-Man meme, and it's going to be bad.
No, it's going to be super bad. No,
bad.
I say all the time, coalition over competition. We're better together than we are apart. And let's be really for real. We know that there is a contingent of folks who are not pleased with our lifestyles, not pleased with our races, not pleased with the way we express ourselves, just not, it seems like they just not pleased with nothing.
They're not pleased with
But
themselves.
we're the folks that they are targeting and coming after. I think one of the most important things about this time that we're in right now, recognize who your enemies really are. Because it's really not each
us,
other.
okay?
No, it's not. It's not us, and it's not you either. If you're listening to this,
It's a government game. That's all. I think after the whole COVID-19 kind of thing, and just having everybody try to reacclimate back into society, I just think it's a scary time right now for just anything: housing, employment, education, just like it's getting real dark. It's getting real scary. I think people are just kind of like on the edge right now at this point. Like, what do I do?
But there is light.
There's
There
always
is
Yeah,
light at
there's
the
light at
end.
the
That's
tunnel.
always
Part of
light.
Yeah.
Yes.
Part of that light is Brave Space Alliance, and they're our guest today on the Mutual Aid Report. And we're going to take a small break, and when we come back, we will continue with Brave Space Alliance. This is WLPNLP Chicago, 105.5 FM, Lumpin' Radio. We'll be back right after these words. And we are back. It's the Mutual Aid Report. I'm Mario Smith. Thank you for listening. We really appreciate your patronage today and every day. And we hope that you are enjoying the show. And tell your people, WLPNLP Chicago, 105.5 FM, lumpinradio.com, or lumpin.tv. I want to talk about funding for organizations like Brave Space. And you mentioned that you've had a conversation about increasing your pantry budget, which is going to probably be front of every organization's, if they do pantries or if they serve in this mutual aid space, because people are going to need food because SNAP is being eliminated.
Yes.
What kinds of funding or partnerships shape the services that you can provide or prioritize?
Yeah, that's a great question. I'm really pleased that we have a diversified funding portfolio, and I think most nonprofits should. So what that means is that we don't rely on any one bucket of funding for everything. We spread it across a number of different categories. So of course, like the first is, foundations. We get grants from a number of different supportive foundations who support our work. I'm pleased to say that a nice chunk of our money is unrestricted. So that means it's not tied to any programmatic deliverables, which is great. It means that we have fuller control over our money and the way that we spend it and how we allocate it. We also have a really strong individual donor base. So I believe annually right now, and Cecilia Robson, who is our director of development, will likely flay me if I get this wrong. But I want to say we are up to 3,000 individual donors, which is really powerful. That means that 3,000 individual people on an annual basis donate to Brave Space Alliance, whether that's $5 or that's $500. Every single donation matters. And is important to us. We also have we stay pretty clear of direct federal funding. That's not really our jam right now, but we do have a number of grants through the state of Illinois. And most recently, we were awarded a grant through the city of Chicago. The city's Department of Public Health awarded us a grant for essential support services. So some of the services that are really most directly grant funded, thank you, are our HIV testing and counseling. I'm doing a little Ebony Thompson impression over here.
Thank you.
And so we do our HIV testing on site at Brave Space, and then we also do HIV testing at our outreach events, and we have at least one, if not a couple, every single week.
And just a small follow-up. In the last few weeks, the number, it's being reported, that the number of HIV cases in Chicago in particular are rising at a rate that we haven't seen in many, many years.
Yeah.
And I know that organizations like Brave Space Alliance and the work that they do and the needs that they meet, what is the conversation in that mutual aid space to people who are part of those numbers that are going up now? I don't want to say prevention, because that in itself is a different conversation. But is there a conversation about protecting yourself, about protecting your entire self, not just your mental self, but making sure that in an environment or in a climate where it seems to be there isn't as much talk of protection as it used to be?
Yeah, so I'm gonna punt this over to Jaheim in a second, but I do think that the conversation on STIs in general has just diminished. I just don't see a lot of conversation about it, period. I don't see a lot of education about it. And I think that actually goes hand in hand. I think that's lockstep with the rising conservatism in this country.
That makes sense.
Yeah, and
makes sense.
And it tracks. Like often, like, you know, here's what's interesting, like historically, is that usually when the economy is down, conservatism goes up. And also what accompanies that are rising numbers of, I think, infectious, you know, sexually transmitted diseases. Partly because when people are broke, they don't have much else to do. Secondly, when people are broke, they don't want to be reminded that they're broke. So substance use rises. And when substance use rises, typically, so do your chances of contracting a sexually transmitted infection.
Because when I heard those numbers, and I will definitely let Jaheim speak, when I heard those numbers were going up, it was a little alarming. And then I had to remember, oh, yeah, of course they're going up, because people are at a point where they don't really care, and they're in a mental space of what is going, because the world is freaking out.
The other piece to that conservatism is that hand in hand, HIV/AIDS funding has been cut, STI education and prevention funding has been cut, and then parents don't want their kids to have sex education in school
at all.
So
and that leads to where we are.
Yes.
That leads to where we're giant.
That's exactly what I was going to hit, right on the head that Nikki said. I just think the fact that over time the school system has like changed dramatically. Because when I was in school, we had sex ed class almost like twice a week. We had different like organizations and nonprofits come in and teach us about STI and HIV education and like PrEP prevention and things like that. I just think that the parents have these new age parents. They've begun to get like a lot more like concerned at the fact that their kids are actually learning about how to sexually prevent themselves from catching or contracting any like infectional diseases and things like that. So I just think taking that kind of education out of the school system is one of the reasons that youth STI and HIV cases are rising within the not just Chicago, but with just around the United States as a whole. Yeah, like parents not even having that conversation anymore with their kids about like condoms, like medications like PrEP and PEP and things like that. I feel like that's another reason that's negatively affecting their kids. And also too, most parents think that their kids learning about HIV will also translate to their kids end up wanting to be like trans or gay or lesbian and things like that. We still have to remember that we have a lot of people in this world that's pretty much stuck in like the old times where like, oh, if you got HIV, if you got the STI, you're gonna die, or like if you have HIV, you're gay or you're a lesbian and things like that. And that's not the case. And if people actually did their research, it's not a gay disease as most people like to say. It's It's HIV. Anybody can get HIV.
It is
no
not
matter.
limited to.
Right.
It's not
to
limited to
nobody,
sexual.
no
Yeah,
sex, gender.
No.
I think that there's also a
Lack
part-
of knowledge.
an amazing lack of knowledge. Thank you, Ms. Ebony, because that is the problem, the larger problem.
Huge.
And yeah, wow.
I had a parent. She was very, very concerned about her child. She was like in distraught. And as me being a certified HIV tester, I kind of just educated her because I wanted to like just bring that worriness down in her. Just like I had to let her know and go in details about like what PrEP is, what PEP is. I had to tell her that it is two forms of HIV. It's HIV-1 and HIV-2. I had to let her know that if her child is consistently on their medication and things like that, that everything will be okay. It's also important to know sometimes that HIV is not a death sentence. We're not living in the 80s anymore. HIV is not a death sentence. If you consistently take your medication and you do what you're supposed to do, and you go to your weekly doctor visits and things like that, you actually 9 times out of 10 have a healthier, longer life expectancy than someone who isn't probably as healthier as you. So I just think just educating people about like knowing that like being on your medication is important. Having prevention is important. Learning about these different medications that like these new scientists have like put in place for us is also important. I would say one thing that kind of does suck though is that when it comes to like getting these like different prevention medications and things like that, the cost for it is extremely high, and if you don't have like good insurance or anything like that, it's kind of like
about insurance,
it's clipped for you. Yeah, it don't matter about insurance most of the times.
Yeah. I'll ask you, Miss Ebony, what would you say Brave Space Alliance needs to fully meet the demand that you see?
Wow, that is an excellent question. Wow, what do we really need?
Like if you could make that list and say these are the 5 things we need that will put us in the place where we want to be able to help the people we want to help.
I would say we need expansion first. I always focus on that. I'm sorry, but I do. We need a bigger place. We need like washer dryers. We have showers. I would even say even if we have like a building type of thing, a space where they could come drop in. We have a drop in. We have people that come drop in. We only have like a couch and a certain amount of chairs for them, like cots for them to sleep on, anything, just to help. Nothing will never, I don't think we will ever get to that point in this life where we will have all the help that we want and expect. But what we can give as an organization, if we expand and get more things, if we could have a hot kitchen, because I'm certified and I have another team member that's certified as well. Well, we could give them food. We have a lot of community that come in. They just want food. They just want to drop in. If we had, they need somewhere to sleep for a minute. We let them sleep. If we had showers, just to have people feel comfortable, and that being one of our pillars of identity and housing. We can't house them, but even we have that place for a couple of hours for them to feel safe. I done heard some of our youths come in like, well, I was at this other organization. I didn't feel comfortable. I didn't feel safe, so I came down here. And we'll ask them, like, what services would you like today? I just want to drop in. Or do you all have the hot meals today? Because we do get hot meals in every week. So they love our hot meals.
Shout out to BGAF.
Shout out to BGAF.
Gabs, they donate to us.
Gabby's my people.
Yeah, BGAF,
Yes,
they
Gabby
donate.
is cool.
Their wonderful Struggle Beard Bakery donates to us.
Yeah.
Whole
Quentin is
Foods.
wonderful.
Maggie
Whole
Eilish
Foods.
has a vegan program that she started. Shout out to Maggie for that as well.
Yes.
Nikki, so we've talked about funding, and I do need to ask one more question about funding. What services are hardest to fund, even though they're the most needed?
I think probably our identity services. I think it's easy for us to get in like clothing donations, but there's other things that are just more difficult on the whole, like binders right now. There's like a real, I think, issue with like being, because we have to purchase those like brand new. I think like wigs, you know, and hair are other ones. Makeup, that's another one too.
Underclothes.
Underclothes, underpants, like socks, bras, you know, fancy clothes. Because people don't just, you know, they don't need just like day-to-day stuff. Like, you know, people need to go to job interviews. They need to, you know, go to other, you know, and sometimes, hell, you just want to dress up. Like, you just want to feel fancy, even if you don't have any place to go.
Put on something different.
You know, put on something different. So I think that's probably the hardest piece, because most funders don't have an awareness of like why people would need these things, right? Like most people, especially I think when most people think of social services, they tend to only think in terms of survival or crisis mode. And dignity is not about keeping people in survival and crisis mode. Dignity is about showing people that there is more out there, and how, right? And how to live, not just survive. And so that's what we're talking about here, is how do we support people in their quest to live? Because anybody could just survive, right? Anybody could just do bare bones, bare minimum, you know, donated clothes, ramen noodles every day. But is that living? And is that what we call dignified, or even what we even think of as humane? Stretched over a long enough time, conditions like that can absolutely drive people to despair and that suicidal ideation that was lifted up earlier, because at that point you don't feel like you have anything to really live for. So dignity and humanity are important. They're a priority for us. And I think one of the hardest things for funders to understand, because I think a lot of funders feel like, well, you know, we've got the bare bones, we've got the bare minimum, you know, at least people are eating, at least they have like, you know, I don't know, crappy corporate t-shirts that somebody donated 100 of because they couldn't sell them or give them away. You know what I mean? Like, that's not living though. That's not exactly dignified. That's not exactly humane. And so we're about dignity and humanity, and what we provide, especially in our dignity suite, which, if you can imagine, it's like an office-sized closet. It's glorious. You know, we can't always get all the things that people need on that journey.
Nikki, you and I'm hoping that the powers that be hear what I'm about to say. I hope that the interim label gets lifted soon, because I think in the space, I know people who do similar work.
Go ahead, see.
I can't think of another person that could do what you do anyway, just being Nikki Patan. But I think there's a reason you're there. You know what I'm saying? And I think this is a good fit. So let's get it together.
We agree.
Board
We agree, Mario.
Yeah, when Nikki came in, it's just like she like literally hit the ground running.
Of
like
course.
when she literally first came in, her
Strategically.
when she strategically came in, her first needs was meeting the team, understanding what the team's needs was, not just work wise, but also outside of work, of course, like that. Just understanding each employee as an individual, but also as an employee too. Understanding like our creativeness, how smart some of us are, how divine we can be, just like how much we care about this work and the work that we do. And then like just her also meeting some of the participants. I think it's a very good thing for CEOs to kind of do that as well, not just the employees having like that day-to-day interaction with participants, but also like she comes out her office at like random times and how y'all doing, and just chops it up with the participants and just like interact and connect with them.
So you guys got to find out who my friend is right off the bat. That's
artist,
that's
music
how we
producer,
met,
television
everybody.
personality,
Here go these
everything. Here go
books.
these books. Like, you know, we just overall we love Nikki, and we just appreciate Nikki so much.
Oh, I love
And yes,
you guys too.
we need that interim position lifted up pretty soon.
I want to ask you about something, because it pertains to something else that you mentioned earlier that we really need to start getting our everybody needs to start putting their focus on. There will be an election in November.
Yes, sir.
There will be an opportunity to reverse a lot of these things legislatively.
Yep.
Through a new Congress,
Absolutely.
a new president, and
Yes,
new,
Lord.
a new everything.
Knew everything.
Is the Brave Space Alliance an organization that will be active in making sure that everybody gets vetted, that everybody, similar to what Injustice Watch does with the vetting of judges, for example, but making sure that your constituents know the importance of being able to assure that legislation is in place to make sure that there are medicines available, to make sure that housing is not an issue, to make sure that, of all things, the opportunities for LGBTQ plus folks to be able to normalize these incredibly horrible situations, or not normalize them rather, and reverse a lot of everything is voting and voter education part of the bigger plan for you for the next few months?
Yeah, I mean, I think for us, like, obviously we're a nonprofit, so we have to stay nonpartisan, but that doesn't mean that we can't work really hard on getting people registered to vote. I've also just done a lot of speaking about how kind of local politics work, that unfortunately local politicians pay closer attention to homeowners than they do renters. And so in my mind, this was one of the drivers for me, and just equity in general. One of the things that I've done in my interim tenure is raise the salary floor at Brave Space Alliance, because I want to add more LGBTQ people to the homeowner tax base, because then you have to listen to us. You don't have that excuse, oh, you're just renters, which, by the way, is a terrible system anyway. You should just be listening to every constituent that you have. You would think. But if this is the way that we're going to play, then the way that we respond to that play, yes, definitely let's play. And so let's make it economically possible for more people to be able to buy homes. And one of the other things that I'd like to do, should I remain on as the permanent CEO, is to bring in first-time homebuyer education for my entire team and the community at large, to let them know that it's not as difficult as you think. There are tons of first-time homebuyer programs in the Chicagoland area through CHA, through the Illinois Housing and Development Authority, or also known as IDA. A lot of local banks have different first-time homebuyer products, and I feel like if more of us knew about that and were economically set up to be able to take advantage of those programs, then we could buy homes. We buy homes, you have to pay more attention to us and what we want for our communities. Because now you're not talking to somebody who you think of as temporary or transit or just in survival mode. You are talking to someone who is a dedicated part of a community, a permanent, substantial part of it. And I think that's part of the tide that we have to turn, especially as Black LGBTQ people. We're not a problem to be solved. We're not an issue to be faced. We are not just like acronyms to be respected. We're whole human beings, and we add to the economy of this place. We define a lot of the culture that's in Chicago, and our voices matter, and our lived experiences in this city matter. We all live here, and the last time I checked, I don't pay a LGBTQ tax. I don't pay a genderqueer non-binary tax. I don't pay a Black woman tax. I pay regular taxes. And I don't get a discount for being treated less than. I don't get a tax break for that.
Yeah, if only.
Right?
If only.
Run me my deductions, please.
You did. There are a few minutes left in the program. I want to ask you this as we get ready to close out. And this is a wider question, not necessarily just about Brave Space, but about mutual aid. If mutual aid exists because systems fail, what would it take for those systems not to fail in the first place?
I think we keep using mutual aid as like a Band-Aid for larger problems. We keep thinking mutual aid are like temporary. It's like a temporary fix. But mutual aid should actually be the standard. That should be the norm. We should be and live in ways that are about helping the people that are around us, and them being able to help us too, because we're human beings. We're literally constructed and designed to do that.
Exactly.
That's like in our DNA. Yeah. And so, it's one of those things where you see somebody who's like hungry and you have food, and then you don't give them any food, and you sitting there munching on your food, watching them be hungry. What does that say about you? What does that say about your character, about your morality, about your ethics, about your value as a human being? Because I'll tell you what I think of somebody like that. Not very much. I don't think very much of somebody who can sit there and watch and see people suffering and then just not be moved to do anything. Because honestly, what else are you doing with your time?
Yeah.
And why would whatever else you're doing with your time be more important than taking the time to be helpful and two, be kind to people. That's actually how we all progress and evolve as human beings. Like, we have to do it together. I don't know why people keep forgetting that we are all trapped on this big blue hurtling rock together.
In the middle of nothing.
There's no escape.
Yeah.
And all the people that were born here before are still on this big blue rock hurtling through space, right? Ain't nobody left,
Nobody.
right? Everybody's still here. Right? In some way, shape, or form. Yeah. So there's no escape at this point, right? Like, Elon has not gotten it together. Ain't nobody going to Mars no time soon. And if they are, they're not going to let us go.
I think that's...
Let's go underwater.
I think that's where you put on Space Program by Tribe Called Quest.
You know, come on now. Come on, Mario.
Music always heals.
But I'll say, like, you know, when I think about, like, mutual aid, and I want to lift this up before we close, you know, one person who just so deeply embodies that on our team, and I know Jaheim and Ebony will agree with me, is Jose Rivas. Jose, shout out to Jose, our pantry manager. What I love about Jose, you walk into our pantry, there are shelves for low sugar, low sodium options. There are shelves for vegan options. There are shelves for gluten-free options.
People with sensitive skin.
Thank you. Like the way Jose packs the pantry bags, he knows. Like, he's gotten to know people so well. He knows how people travel to get their pantry bags home. So he knows, oh, in this bag, I got to make sure the eggs are on top and this is situated like this because they got to walk this far. They got to take these many buses before they get home. Or so-and-so isn't going to eat that, so let me go ahead and replace it with this. It's that to me is the essence of mutual aid. It's seeing people. And seeing them and being willing to hang in with people long enough that you can actually see what it is that they need. And if you have it, being willing to give it or to share it. That's what it is. But you have to see people. You have to recognize people. You have to recognize the humanity in them and then treat them with dignity as you share whatever it is. And that really is what we do at Brave Space. We see people. We recognize people. And then we honor the humanity and dignity in them by the way that we hopefully give them what it is that they need.
It's just an amazing thing to see, like, when a new participant comes in, even a returning participant, like things like the Dignity Suite, just them walking out like with a smile on their face, that's just such a happy thing for us to do. Or like when one of the guys get a haircut, or the girls get their hair done, like you see like the big smile on their face, and like they're just so grateful for those kind of things. New pairs of shoes, us helping them look for jobs, and just things like that. Just Brave Space being here and us putting in this work is such a blessing, not only just for us, but to our participants as well. We even have participants that never had a job before that finally got a job that comes back like a couple months later, like, hey, look at me, I got on my uniform today. And you're like, oh, that's what's up. So just us being around and us sticking it through and things like that. Like I said, it's going to always be Brave Space. It's never, just clock
Don't forget, we got a locker program too for those that's unhoused or homeless. They could come look for me. Ebony will be there.
Yeah, we
sign up for a locker.
So many beautiful things on the horizon. We're going to finish the rehabilitation on our temporary housing building, the Jasmine Alexander building. That's on 78th and Saginaw. And so when we're done with that, we will have space for up to 15 residents to be temporarily housed in our housing building. So
and chances are I know that building because I grew up on 78th and Marquette.
Oh, right. Okay, go ahead, Mario.
I know the building you're talking about, I think.
Yes.
Jaheim.
Yes.
Miss Ebony, Nikki Patan, thank you so much for being on the Mutual Aid Report. I really appreciate you.
Thank
you for having us. This is amazing.
And as we wrap up today, I want you to take a second to look around your own block. Brave Space Alliance reminds us that community isn't just a neighborhood, it's a verb. It's the active choice to show up for one another when the official channels go quiet. Whether it's through food, housing, or healthcare, they're proving every day, that we are the ones we've been waiting for. This is what it looks like when communities build systems of care where institutions have failed to deliver them. Keep showing up, keep building, and keep looking out for each other. My name is Mario Smith. Really appreciate you being here with us today. We will see you soon. This is WLPNLP Chicago 105.5 FM Lumpin Radio, and this is the Mutual Aid Report.
Thank you for listening to the Mutual Aid Report. If you learned anything from this episode today, we hope you learned that collective care, shared resources, and community action are powerful tools, that when we show up for one another, we create the conditions for everyone to thrive. We'll be back with more stories, insights, and conversations that highlight the power of community. Until next time, take care of yourself so we can take care of each other.